Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. So it is just very briefly, just I wanted to go through the same issues which we did mention the other day about the age of Sayyidah Aisha, as well as just to mention maybe a couple of extra issues. And for me actually it's very strange actually. Because mashallah, when I was researching, but before I've started my research, I used to I used to have very strong belief that Sayyidah Aisha used to be 6 years old when she was married and 9 years old when she did move into the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But anyway, after my research, actually I am not that confident on that issue. So I do not say that there is some specific age, for example 18 years old, but what I can say now, I say maybe we may not give very accurate information about what age she was, because the narrations are conflicting with each other. Okay, so that's one thing. And the second thing, in terms of the responses which came, it was very describes the you can say the a level of the morals and the behaving of the people who are sending the responses. And I don't believe that most of these people who are sending these very you can say hurting words, I don't believe that they do have any educational background. I don't think that they did study. But anyway, it proves, it just describes them more than it describes me. But anyway, one thing is 100%, age of Sayyidah Aisha is not part of Islam. So anyone who will have a research, it doesn't mean that he's researching about authenticity of God being there and Prophet being Prophet. There is nothing to do with this and that. Okay, it means anyone who will make research, it doesn't mean that he's an enemy of Islam or enemy of the Prophet. Nothing to do. So what? So what? My question, what is the exact date of birth of Rasulullah? We have three opinions. One is 1 year before the field. Okay, and one says exactly in the year of field, and third says 1 year after the year of field. Okay, so the most popular, it says 1 year after the year of field, elephant, but I do believe that it is actually 1 year before arrival of field. Okay, so if the narrations are conflicting about the date of birth of Rasulullah, and as you know, Rasulullah is the most important personality, not in Islam but in whole universe, because there is no one more you can say noble and more you can say respected in whole universe, including the prophets. There is no one who is higher than the Prophet. So if narrations were conflicting about Rasulullah, so what do you think about anyone else? It's not the matter of belief and disbelief, you know. So that is about the year. But on top of that, we do have conflicting narrations about the day of the birth. Not the year of birth, but day of the birth. Some say 7th of Rabiul Awwal, some say it is 9th, some say that it is 12th. And the most popular is 12th, but the most reliable that it is 6th or 7th. Okay, so as you can see, so if some opinion is the most popular, it does not mean that it is the most reliable. Okay, so it's not one necessitating the other. Okay, or for example, another issue we did mention in the Arba'in of the Mahdi about Imam Mahdi meeting or not meeting Isa alayhi salam. The most popular that he meets, but the most reliable, but that they never will see each other. Okay, so the biggest proof for that is Rasulullah says about 7 years of the Mahdi alayhi salam, saying that my ummah never was enjoying by dunya before, and my ummah will never enjoy like that after, before and after. But then what Rasulullah says about 7 years of Isa alayhi salam, Rasulullah says 1 head of the bull will be 20 golden dinars because of the hunger. And all of the Muslim population, so when they will go to the hill of Tur, so that will be sufficient for them. So it's only few thousand Muslim in whole world. Do you understand? By revising many other proofs, actually, we come to conclusion that the most popular opinion is the less reliable opinion. Okay, but what about hadith saying that Imam Mahdi is praying behind Isa alayhi salam? So that is mudraj hadith. You cannot take it. I mean, that extra is not from the Prophet, but from one of the narrators. But anyway, so the most important thing is the most popular doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the most reliable. Okay, that is, just forget about that one. Or we as Hanafis, within the Hanafi madhab, you know the most popular opinion about how you should be holding your hand. They say 2 fingers holding like that and 3 on top. This is the less reliable. Okay. Or another opinion, what is the most popular opinion? How you should be wiping over your head. So first 3 fingers goes back and then palms comes back, you know, and then so that is the most popular and the less reliable. Okay, so some opinion being very well known, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the most reliable. Okay, so just forget about that thing. Okay, so let's be more academical. Let's forget about the emotions. Okay, so that's one thing, as well as the brothers actually. So when they were going through the narration, so they mentioned that anyone who actually doubts on the age of Sayyid Aisha, so he is doubting on Sahih al-Bukhari. Very strange period, because the same thing when it was from their side, they said anyone who goes against us. So if you remember the story of Banu Qurayza, so Imam Bukhari, Muslim, and 10 other authentic sources did mention that it is muqatila, but only Ibn Hisham said all of man. Okay, so in that matter, anyone who would go against them, he would be against something strange, you know, again, insulting words, etc. So then why Bukhari, when he is with all of the 10 Muslim, Ibn Hibban, Ibn Khuzaymah, all of them authentic scholars, opposing Ibn Hisham, they're going with Ibn Hisham, and that's not you can say scratching the authenticity of the Bukhari. But when it is many narrations again opposing, for example, the narration of Bukhari, so then we cannot go with the others. So it is double standard. So I think it is not very academical actually. Anyway, we'll try to mention all of them, inshallah, in here. Anyway, in terms of Sayyidah Aisha, as you know, we did mention the last week also. So there is hadith in Bukhari and Muslim in which Sayyidah Aisha says that she was 6 years old when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married her, and she was 9 years old when she did move in. That's one thing. As well as Imam Muslim did mention other narration in which Sayyidah Aisha says, I was 7 years old, okay, when he married me, and 9 years old when I moved into his house. Anyway, and we have the same thing about 6 years and 9 years narrated from Abu Dawood with the authentic hadith, as well as Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, and by the way, Ibn Majah says she was 7 years old, as Imam Muslim narrates. Okay, and then Imam Ahmad also says that she was 6 years old. So that's the so anyway, it is not something that we can doubt, that all of them scholars confirm that it is 6 and 9. Okay, so the chain and all of the narrations are authentic, no doubt. And also there is so that is one side, and the second side, if you remember, we mentioned many narrations. Okay, so one of these narrations, I don't remember if we did mention or not, Imam Tabari as well as Ibn Hisham, both of them, they did mention that Sayyidah Aisha and Sayyidah Asma and all of the kids of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, they were born in Jahiliyyah. Okay, and some of the brothers, I don't believe that it's scholarly you can say discussion. So what did he mention? He quoted exactly the same narration. So what does it say? It says, just listen to it. فولدت له, so he was mentioning about Ruman. Ruman is the mother of Sayyidah Aisha. فولدت له عبد الرحمن وعائشة فكل هؤلاء الأربعة من أولاده ولدوا من زوجتيه اللتين سميناهما في الجاهلية. So it means that Ruman she gave birth of Abdul Rahman bin Abi Bakr as well as Sayyidah Aisha. And then he says, Tabari as well as Ibn Hisham, they say, فَكُلُّ هَؤُلَاءِ الْأَرْبَعَ مِنْ أَوْلَادٍ. So all of them 4 kids of Abu Bakr, وُلِدُوا مِنْ زَوْجَتَيْهِ. So they were born from 2 of his wives. اللَّتَيْنِ, those 2 wives, سَمَّيْنَاهُمَا, that we did mention. But then he says, فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ, in the time of Jahiliyyah. So then he says, سَمَّيْنَاهُمَا, in here we did mention them. And then he says that it means we did mention them, that he, Abu Bakr, married them in Jahiliyyah. Okay, it never works. It's not in Arabic language. So, سَمَّيْنَاهُمَا فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّة means they were born in Jahiliyyah. Okay, from whom? From them 2 wives of him that we did mention. That does make sense. So in here, if you want to make this text to mean that he did marry them in Jahiliyyah, so you have to say, اللتين سميناهما أنه تزوجهما في الجاهلية. That does make sense. So it is really badly twisted, you can say, translation, yes.
Well, that's very interesting you should mention that, because in a rather excessively long reply that was posted, one of the arguments was that this narration doesn't mean that the Hazrat Aisha and Hazrat Asma were born in the time of Jahiliyyah, but only that they were married in the time of Jahiliyyah. Hazrat Abu Bakr married both his wives. So you're saying linguistically it doesn't make sense?
It does fit. So what we can do, we just bring someone, some Arabian, okay, and we'll make him to read it. So some natural person who is not with us and who is not with the others. So we will ask him to read it. Okay, so for that meaning that you are referring to, so look into this. I will translate it literally. وُلِدُوا, so them were born min زَوْجَتَيْهِ, from his 2 wives, اللَّتَيْنِ, that these 2 wives, سَمَّيْنَاهُمَا, that we mentioned. And then فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. So if they, just to support their opinion, it means that Tabari mentioned them in Jahiliyyah, means Tabari was born in Jahiliyyah, and then he did mention them saying, oh, them 2 wives, and then he died, and then he was resurrected when he was writing his book, and then he was referring to himself, that we did mention them in Jahiliyyah time. Okay? Or other option, that we did mention them, okay, above. Okay? But fil Jahiliyyah, it cannot be that we did mention them in Jahiliyyah, because if it would be about him mentioning in Jahiliyyah, means he did, Tabari was born in Jahiliyyah and he mentioned them in Jahiliyyah time. Okay? Or another option, in Jahiliyyah, them 4 kids were born in Jahiliyyah.
Right.
Does make sense? But in terms of we did mention them means he married them in Jahiliyyah. For that we need extra word, which is not word but extra sentence, which is we did mention them that Abu Bakr married them in Jahiliyyah. Okay, so for that we need this extra. ولدوا من زوجتيه اللتين سميناهما أنه تزوجهما في الجاهلية. أنه تزوجهما, it's not word but it is one whole sentence. And Arabians do not delete these type of sentences without leaving very strong proof. There is no any proof in here. It is linguistics very strange.
I mean, I as you know, most of us not proficient in Arabic, but what I will say is the text which has been circulated about this, even the English translation, it doesn't mean it's wrong actually. So even the English translation doesn't mean that the children were not born in Jahiliyyah. Even in how they translated it to show us English speakers that it was not in the time of Jahiliyyah, doesn't work. So even in English they didn't seem to do a good job of it. So it is quite strange actually.
Look, in Arabic language, I don't know these brothers who translated if they will understand me or not, because so in Arabic language they do have something called jar majroor. So fi is harful jar, al jahiliyyah is majroor. So whenever we have jar majroor, we need muta'alliq, because jar majroor is very weak element in the text, so it cannot it cannot exist in the text, in the sentence, without standing or without being based on the verb. Okay, and in here we have only 2 verbs. Wulidu means they were born in Jahiliyyah or سميناهما in Jahiliyyah. We mentioned them in Jahiliyyah. But there is no any تزوجهما. There is no any do you understand? So في الجاهلية jar majrur has to be attached and connected to the verb. And in the sentence we have only two verbs. Okay? So as I explained, so it will be one of two. في الجاهلية, in Jahiliyyah, what in Jahiliyyah? They were born in Jahiliyyah or we did mention them in Jahiliyyah. Means I was in Jahiliyyah and then I named them saying, oh, them two ladies, and then he came back to our to our life and then was writing the book, and then he says, do you remember I mentioned them in Jahiliyyah? So it's that,
Right.
But in terms of so because for them to say that he married them in Jahiliyyah, we need third verb, which is not there.
So
because
the verbs.
تزوجهما.
So there's only.
Jar majrur needs verb, or otherwise, without having a verb in the sentence, jar majrur cannot exist there.
Right.
And fil jahili is jar majrur.
And even an Arabic reader today reading this would understand it as they were born in. So this is not controversial.
Because there is no option that Tabari mentioned them in Jahiliyyah. Okay, or third option could be still valid option. Two wives that I did mention in the chapter of Jahiliyyah.
Right.
But there is no in his book chapter of Jahiliyyah, okay, in which he says, okay, al-Jahiliyyah, and then he will mention them. But it's one of them too. Okay, so either they were born in Jahiliyyah or I shouted their name, or I did call them in Jahiliyyah. I was in Jahiliyyah, so I named them in Jahiliyyah. So it does make sense,
Right.
Yes, so it is just, so it is one of those issues from which I said that these brothers are not academical. They do not have any background in the Arabic language, actually. So it's from there. So anyway, this actually, the first conflicting narration to all of these narrations that say that Aisha was 6 or 7 when she was married. Okay, so this doesn't support them, but actually it disproves what they are referring to. And then the sources of it is in my electronical copy of the book is the 4th volume of Tarikh of Tabari and page number 50, and in Ibn Hisham 1st volume page number 65. Okay. And also, there is another thing which I didn't mention the last week. So, it is not maybe very accurate, maybe it may not be very strong, but for me it is still sufficient to get engaged into these, you can say, controversial narrations. One thing, can I ask you, if you can just help me, when was the arrival of Fil, Ashabul Fil? It was the year in which Rasulullah was born, or after 1 year, or before 1 year. Okay, so and then so that will be so. Let's go with the brothers who say that when Rasulullah married Sayyidah Aisha, she was 6 years old. Okay, so then before how many years it will be the year of If you can just help me, please.
I don't think there's any good mathematician.
Okay, so
we're gonna have to rely on Suleiman again.
Yes. Yeah, please, can you help us? Let's go with the opinion which says that Rasulullah married Sayyidah Aisha when she was 6 years old. Okay, means so that was exactly 1 year before the migration, and Rasulullah spent 13 years in Mecca. Means Rasulullah. So she was born after 6 years after the prophethood. Am I right? Yes.
Yes.
And then, so that's 6 years. And then Rasulullah started the mission at the age of 40. Means between the birthday of Sayyidah Aisha and the incident of Fil, there was 46 years. According to this narration, am I right? 46 years.
Yes.
46 years. 46 years.
So if if she was born in the first year of prophethood,
Yeah.
then even if you give and take 1 year, it will be 40 because Rasulullah, he was 40, right? When
Yeah.
so
46 years.
46 when they got married.
Yeah. No. Not 46. 46 when Sayyidah Aisha was born. According to the narration in which brothers said that Sayyidah Aisha was 6 years old when Rasulullah married her. 6 years old. Okay? And that was 1 year before migration. And migration was after 15 years after the mission. I'm sorry, 13 years.
13 years, right.
Okay? Means when Sayyidah Aisha was migrating, she was... actually, it's just a bit more. So it is 43, 44 years before the birthday of Sayyidah Aisha. So Qissatul Fil happened about 43, 44 years before the birthday of Sayyidah Aisha. Am I right?
It depends, isn't it, where if it was 1 year before the birth of Rasulullah or not. But yeah, roughly.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
So then, because as I'm saying, it is not very accurate to mention this in here, but still, when there are other narrations, we can maybe mention it as, you can say, some secondary issue. So anyway, there is a very strange narration from Ibn Ishaq. So it is in Bidayah wa Nihaya, as well as it is in Tafsir Ibn Kathir. Okay, and he did mention the chain of the narration. So if brothers are interested, they can go to have a look into it. So Sayyidah Aisha in there, she says that لقد رأيت قائد الفيل وسائسه بمكة أعميين مقعدين يستطعمان. So then anyway, she said that I saw I saw two people who actually were when with these invaders when they came to Mecca. So one who was actually holding the elephant, and the second is the one who was training it. Okay, so I saw them in Mecca and they were begging the people. Okay, Sayyidah Aisha mentions that. So both of them, they were alive. Okay, those people who were actually responsible for the field, for the elephant. Okay, so they were still alive there. Okay, so just if you just think about it properly, person cannot become a person who will look after the elephant. Sais means training, the one who trains the elephants to do and to not to do some certain things. Mm-hmm. So it cannot be, for example, 10 years, 20 years old, a young man. So it should be a person with good experience, 40, 50 years old, who can train them, the elephants. Okay, but then Aisha says, I saw both of them in Mecca. Okay, so if we say, let's say that when they came to Mecca, there was something about 40 years, okay, as a minimum. So then she saw she saw both of them, and it cannot be that she saw them in her childhood because she wouldn't recognize them, but being breastfeeding a baby. So at least she should be something about 6-7 years old child for her to see and recognize, to understand what's the feel and what are the meaning of the person who trains the field, you know. Okay, so according to this, both of them will be over the age of 90 or something about 100 years old. Both of them are still alive by chance and in Mecca and begging the people. So it is a bit far, am I right?
They would be pretty old, even if they were like, it would be strange for an 80-year-old man to be training an elephant.
No, it's not that.
It's still possible though, isn't it, Sheikh? So for example, 45 years later, the person training the elephant could be 30, even 35, because in them times maybe people were training a lot more earlier.
Yeah.
So you got 70, 80, so it makes it 80, and let's say she was 87.
Yeah.
This is possible, 80.
I would say 80 years old person in that time, and then sitting in Mecca, both of them being alive. So it is chance on top of the chance, you know. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So it is not very accurate proof, but when we have got all of them narrations, it is something to consider. Okay, It is a bit strange actually. It is for me it's a bit strange. Anyway, it is not very accurate, but anyway, it is something just to yes.
It's interesting you mentioned the elephant. So are you saying that there's an authentic narration where Hazrat Aisha saw the elephant?
No. It's not that. But she saw the person who was training. I mean, who was responsible for that elephant.
Right.
So can you imagine? After 40 years, after 45 years, after 43 years, people still recognize the person. Okay. And who was trainer, who was responsible. So it is two people, not only one.
Right.
Sa'is and Qa'id. Qa'id, the one who holds it, okay, brings it. And the second is Sa'is, okay, the one who trains. Okay, and also Sa'is, the one who trains the elephant, he couldn't be at the age of 20 when he would be an experienced trainer, you know? Do you understand what I mean? So it is the same as to say, we have got a person who is expert on training the horses and he's 20 years old man. Never can be. Do you understand what I mean? As well as it is the elephant of the king of Yemen, Abraham. Does make sense? So it will not be young man, but it will be very experienced, a middle-aged person.
Because it's interesting, but if there was actually still an elephant there, because some people say, how can there be an elephant in these hot climates and in Yemen and all of it? So they argue, so if the elephant was still there, that would be a proof that there definitely was an army of elephants. But she didn't actually see the physical elephant.
No.
Oh, okay.
But she saw them two people who brought the elephants to destroy the Kaaba.
Right.
Okay. So it means after 43 years, okay, people recognizing them two people. Okay. So it proved that it is one of them too. Either say that Aisha was very mature. Okay. As well as it was not very far period, not big period, between people of field coming and say the Aisha seeing. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, but anyway, it is something just to consider. It's not very accurate. Anyway, and also if you remember the other thing, we did mention that Sayyidah Aisha mentioned in some of the sources that she was one of the early followers of Rasulullah ﷺ, and here are the references. So it is, Ibn Ishaq did mention it. So in my electronic copy of the book is page number 108. As well as Ibn Hisham did mention that she was one of the earliest followers of Rasulullah ﷺ, and that was Ibn Hisham. Also in my electronic copy, it is second volume. Okay, in the chapter where the Ibn Hisham mentions the first people who followed Rasulullah by the da'wah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. So in there it mentions that وَعَائِشَةَ بِنْتُ أَبِي بَكْرٍ وَهِيَ يَوْمَئِذٍ صَغِيرَةٌ. So Asma and Aisha, they did follow Rasulullah, and then Aisha was يَوْمَئِذٍ صَغِيرَةٌ, young girl. Okay, and you cannot say that, for example, 2 years old breastfeeding baby did follow Rasulullah. You cannot say that. At least she has to be something about 7, 8, as well as I don't believe that it could be 6 years. Okay. Because 6 years old, can you say that she followed Rasulullah 6 years old? So it should be mature girl. Something, I would say something about above 8, 9, something like that. Anyway, and the next reference for this one is Ar-Rawd al-Anif. Also, it is it belongs to the author whose name is Abu al-Qasim al-Suhaili, Abdul Rahman bin Abdullah, who actually passed away at 581st of the Hijrah, as well as Mutahhar bin Tahir also mentions that she was one of the earliest followers of Rasulullah ﷺ, and Mutahhar bin Tahir passed away at 355th. Okay, early author. Yes.
Do you know the narration about Hazrat Abu Bakr?
Yeah.
That he gave dawah. That's within the first 3 years, isn't it?
I'm going to that.
Or is that a different narration?
Yeah, all of them confirmed that. Because there is some refutation of this point.
Right.
I want to mention it there, inshallah. Okay. Mutahhar bin Tahir, who actually mentions that فَكَانَ إِسْلَامُ هَؤُلَاءِ فِي ثَلَاثِ سِنِينَ. So he says that all of them people, say the Aisha's man, all of them first earliest generation of the Muslims, they followed Rasulullah within the 3 years. Okay, so in here he says يدعو في خفية قبل أن يدخل دار أرقم بن أبي أرقم. So before Rasulullah went into the house of Arqam bin Abi Arqam, because that event took place at the end of 3rd year of the mission. But Asma and Aisha, all of them followed Rasulullah before that. Okay, and Mutahhar bin Tahir passed away at 355th. So it is early author, and we do have one author who is even more early than all of them. It's Abu Zayd Ahmad bin Sahl al-Balkhi, okay, who passed away at 322nd of Hijrah, okay, who was born at 235 and passed away at 322nd, and it is in his book called Al-Badr wa Tarikh, Kitab al-Badr wa Tarikh, and it is in my PDF copy. It is second volume, page number 52nd. Okay.
So Sheikh, you know these narrations?
Yeah.
So, for example, being a believer within the first 3 years, so, like, and you said that it's a ijma, so it's agreed upon opinion that it was 1 year before migration that they got engaged.
Yeah, correct, yes.
So it means even if at that age she was just a newborn baby, she had to be at a minimum 9 years old at that time, isn't it?
I didn't understand, sorry.
So if she's born 3 years, within the first 3 years she was one of the believers.
Yeah.
Which is when Rasulullah was 43.
Yeah.
And the agreed upon opinion is that Rasulullah was 52.
Yeah.
When they got married.
Yeah.
Around about that much.
Yeah, yeah.
So it means that even if at that time she was just born,
yeah,
which is not possible to be a believer, you can't just be born.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
At minimum she has to be 9, doesn't she?
Correct, yes.
So you know these 3-4 narrations you mentioned, are they authentic or?
About what?
All these narrations. So the last few narrations you mentioned.
Yeah.
Demonstrating that, for example, she accepted Islam.
Yeah.
Within the first 3 years.
Yeah, correct. Yes, it is. Yes.
Or the
yeah,
other
yeah.
few. So are they all authentic?
Yeah. Inshallah, yes.
Are you gonna go through the narrations or is
in terms of chain, actually I do not have them.
Yeah.
But it is. But what I'm relying is the scholars who are confirming it. So I'm just relying on their confirmation of it.
Right.
Okay, so I did mention Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham and Mutahhar bin Tahir al-Hafiz, as well as Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, all of them.
Are they Sahih?
Inshallah, so they are confirming it. So it is because even the brothers who do not accept it, so they didn't touch the narration, but they did touch that all of them narrations. Inshallah, I'm going to touch upon it right now. Wasn't that
one of the points mentioned?
Well, there was basically, actually, they went even further, and they said Ibn Hisham and Ibn Ishaq is not reliable.
Okay.
So they said, for example, not like openly like that, but
Imam Zahabi confirmed that Ibn Ishaq is reliable. Yeah, and also Imam Zahabi did mention what's the reason of some of the scholars saying that Ibn Ishaq is not reliable, because Ibn Ishaq had some problem with Imam Malik. So Imam Malik said he's Dajjal that would kick him off of Medina. Okay, but then Imam Zahabi as well as Ibn Hajar Asqalani, they went back saying it was just temporary thing of Imam Malik.
right.
Yeah, but as well as and also if Imam Malik says about some person that is not reliable, is not all the time is not reliable. Do you understand? So it is something like he says that it was just personal matter between Imam Malik and Ibn Ishaq, which nothing to do with the academical authenticity of any of them two scholars.
Right.
Okay, so anyway. Anyway, and also Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, because he's not very famous author, maybe for the brothers who just who are talking about Ibn Ishaq and others. So Abu Hayyan al-Tawhidi, who passed away at 404th, so he says about him, إنه لم يتقدم له شبيه في الأعصر الأولى ولا يظن أنه يوجد له نظير في مستأنف الدار. So anyway, he praised him a lot. Okay, said there was no one who would equal Abu Zayd al-Balkhi in terms of his knowledge and etc. And I don't believe that anyone after him is going to be equal to him. So he's praising him very highly. So actually all of them scholars did confirm that Sayyidah Aisha was one of the earliest followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sheikh, can you confirm, just like for us lay people, Ibn Hisham, when is that collected and written down compared to Bukhari? I know we don't just go with the earliest, but two things I wanted to ask you was, Did Imam Malik mention anything in Muwatta or anything about the age of Hazrat Aisha? Anything mentioned? And we have
I don't know. I don't have an idea. I'm sorry about that. About Imam Malik, yeah.
And Ibn Hisham, when is that written? Is before Bukhari, after Bukhari?
Ibn Hisham is actually, I do not know exact dates, but actually something between him and Ibn Ishaq is something about 50 years actually.
Right.
So within that period he did collected all of these narrations of Ibn Ishaq.
So it's before Bukhari?
Yeah, so something like that, yeah. But anyway, I think it's very easy to find out just by going to look into the dates also. It's very easy, yeah. And also the brothers, yeah.
You know, in terms of like Ibn Hisham or Ibn Ishaq being reliable, they could be reliable, but then the hadiths could be weak, couldn't they? Some of the narrations what they've got.
Yeah, yeah. So that's coming right now. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, actually the brothers who were criticizing this narration of Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham, so they said that this statement only can mean only one thing. And what is that thing? It is that Sayyidah Aisha followed Rasulullah before Umar. So then, what did they do? Umar, they tried to push Islam of Umar radiallahu anhu very, toward the end of the mission in Mecca. So they said Umar radiallahu anhu became Muslim in the year 9 after the mission. So it is something about 3 or 4 years before Rasulullah migrated. Okay, and but as you know, it is again. So we need to just go to find out because it's again right now they are criticizing us for something that they did with us also, because the most popular famous opinion that he was the 40th person to believe, and it was so by him believing, so the silent mission, secret mission finished, and that was at the end of the year 3. Do you understand? So when we went against the popular opinion, they complained. So now again they did the same thing. Okay, but anyway, let's go what it says. So actually it's also mathematical calculation. Okay, so in terms of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu saying that he was young boy when Umar radiallahu anhu became Muslim. And then we all know that the age of Ibn Umar was 14 in the year of Uhud, which was the year 2. Okay, so then after calculation, so brothers came to conclusion that Umar radiallahu anhu, it wasn't possible for him to become Muslim before year 9 after the prophethood. Okay, so so now according to this, it could be so now the narration that said Aisha became Muslim before Umar, it is correct even according to that opinion. Okay, but if we just go back to the narration. So Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham, all of them, and also Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, all of them, they narrate, so they say one thing, that they say actually two things. So Aisha radiallahu anha becoming Muslim before Umar, but not only that, but on top of that they say فَكَانَ إِسْلَامُ هَؤُلَاءِ فِي ثَلَاثِ سِنِينَ. So they became Muslim within 3 years. So then it doesn't matter if it's after Umar or before Umar. Okay, because it would support them if these 3 years wouldn't be there, So if it would be only about Umar radiallahu anhu, so she became Muslim before Umar, and Umar became Muslim at the year 9 after the mission, means it could be just before him, which is even if she would be born, for example, whatever age is, so 6 years and 9 years, it's still workable, So, but in here it says 3 years, and on top of that, يدعو في خفية. So it was the year 3 years in which Rasulullah used to do secret da'wah. قبل أن يدخل دار أرقم بن أرقم. So that's no doubt that Rasulullah went into the house of Arqam ibn Abi Arqam at the end of the year 3. So now Umar radiallahu anhu, when he became Muslim, it doesn't matter no more. Does make sense?
Yeah, regarding Umar becoming Muslim,
Yeah.
I might have missed it, but you said Uhud happened in the 2nd year.
Yeah.
Of after prophethood.
Yeah, yeah.
Which and then Ibn Umar was 14.
Yeah.
And then he said that my father became a Muslim when I was a young boy.
Boy, yes.
Which means it'll be before that.
Yes, correct, yes.
So
It cannot be that Ibn Umar was 3 years old kid when Umar radiallahu anhu became Muslim.
yes, even if you say, let's say he was 6, it would be 7 years. Yeah, so it
6, let's say 6 years as a minimum, yes.
But Uhud happened 2 years after Prophethood.
Yes.
After Hijrah, you mean?
Is it 2
After,
years?
no, after Hijrah, after Hijrah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
15.
Yeah, yeah.
15 years after
Yeah,
Prophethood.
yeah. Just because brothers are trying to prove that even if Aisha became Muslim before Umar, so Umar didn't become Muslim at the year 3 after the mission, but year 9. So it gives enough time for Sayyidah Aisha to be born and to accept, to be born after the prophethood and to reach the age of 6, okay, for Rasulullah to marry her. So it's just. But it doesn't work because narration doesn't say that it's only before Umar, but on top of that within 3 years of the mission. So now we don't look into the Umar radiallahu anhu and other things. So it is a bit strange, yes.
Sheikh, what did the sources you mentioned, Ibn Hisham, Ibn Ishaq, say about the acceptance when Hazrat Umar accepted Islam? Did they say it was also within the first 3 years, or was
end of 3 years? So as soon as he became Muslim, he is the one who said, "Ya Rasulullah, if we are on the true path, so then why do we have to be afraid?" So he is the one by whom Islam became public.
right?
Okay, and we say that it is the end of the year 3.
Right.
Yeah.
And then based on that narration, they're saying that, so for example, that Hazrat Umar didn't become at end of year 3, but in reality it's probably
9 years. Yeah.
Okay. But then isn't it more likely it's going to be year 5 or 6
What is?
when Hazrat Umar became Muslim? Because if Ibn Umar is 15 years after prophethood,
No,
and a
because
young boy is about 4 or 5 years old, isn't he, or 6? About 5, 6 years old.
yeah,
So he'd be 9 years before that,
yeah.
which would make it about.
Because brothers are trying to use it as proof for them, you know. Now you're disproving them, so I want to leave it with them, you know.
So are you saying it doesn't add up because when if the son of Umar was 14 or 15,
Yeah.
14 at the time of Uhud,
Which is 15 years after prophethood.
and when Hazrat Umar accepted about 14 years ago, it's difficult for him to be 5 or 6 when he witnessed this acceptance.
Yeah, no, because then that would make him 2, wouldn't it? So that agrees with their point that it wasn't 3, but it must have been after that. But then how much after that? So you'd say a young boy, how old would he be? You'd say
There's
about
something
5 or
about 6, yeah.
Yeah, so then that would make it 4 or 5 years after prophethood, which would in essence still make Aisha 9 when Uhud happened. Right, well, alright. So he wouldn't be 14, so because for example if he's 14, 15 years afterwards, so it means that he's...
If he's definitely 14 at Uhud,
Correct,
and
yes.
Uhud is 14 years after prophethood,
Yeah, correct.
then at the time of prophethood he's like
gone.
0.
Yeah.
And then if Hazrat Umar accepted Islam in, let's say, first 3 years, then Ibn Umar is only 3 maximum.
Yeah.
So
So it cannot be that Ibn Umar cannot say that I was ghulam. Ghulam is young boy. Okay, so you cannot say 2-3 years old kid, boy, you know, young boy, ghulam. You cannot. So it is something about 6-7 years old. Okay, so if you will make it like that, definitely it will prove their point. But the point in here is Ibn Hisham and Balkhi, all of them are mentioning that not only she became Muslim before Umar, but not only that, but within 3 years. Now we don't care when Umar became Muslim, 9th year or even after Hijrah. So what?
it's irrelevant.
Because in here it says within 3 years before Rasulullah went into the house of Arqam Abi Arqam, which happened at the end of the year 3. So now we don't care when Umar became Muslim. That does make sense.
No,
So you know this narration here, is this Sahih as well?
And so that's what I think here.
So if it is, then that contradicts the other one, doesn't it?
So that's what I'm. So whole point in here, I'm trying to say that it's very non-accurate to say that she was exactly at the age of 9 or 20 or. Do you
Yes.
so I'm saying narrations are conflicting.
Yeah.
So that's my point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So and also. And these issues, we mentioned them all. And also in terms of the brothers mentioned about the difference between Sayyidah Asma and Sayyidah Aisha. Okay, so Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani did confirm in his book in Tadhib that the difference between them is actually 10 years. Okay, and then and also it says that so it has been confirmed by several sources. So for example, the main person who is making that statement is Ibn Abi Zinad. Okay, and then brothers try to prove that Ibn Abi Zinad is non-reliable. Okay, and then they mentioned some of the issues. Anyway, just before we'll go to that issue about Ibn Abi Zinad, Ibn Hibatullah mentioned that Abu Nu'aym al-Asbahani mentioned that Sayyidah Aisha was born, Sayyidah Asma was born when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was 20 years old. 20 years old. And then Ibn Hajar confirmed that the difference between Sayyidah Asma and Sayyidah Aisha is 10 years. Dhahabi, because he is going with the most popular opinion, but yet we will go to Imam Dhahabi. So he says Bid'at Ashara. So the difference between Asma and Aisha is several years after 10. Bid'ah means something between 3 to 9. So let's say as a maximum it could be 19 years. Okay, so now if we go with Abu Nu'aym, who said that Sayyidah Asma was born when Abu Bakr was 20 years old. So according to Ibn Hajar, Sayyidah Aisha will be born when Abu Bakr was 30. Am I right? After 10 years.
Yeah.
And according to Dhahabi, as a maximum, he will be 39, because Bid'at Ashara, several years after 10, as a maximum. Okay, so if let's go with Dhahabi, forget about Ibn Hajar. Dhahabi, so if Abu Bakr was 39, and what's the difference between Abu Bakr and Rasulullah alayhi salam? It is 2 years. Means Rasulullah by that age was 42. 42 years old. Okay, so according to this narration, what's going to be the age of Sayyidah Aisha when Rasulullah married her 1 year before Hijrah? 13 years. So Rasulullah migrated when he was 53. And Sayyidah Aisha was born when Rasulullah was 41, because Abu Bakr 39, so Rasulullah 41. 41, so what will be the age? 11, 12. So it's again not matching, you know. It doesn't match with the 6, 9, as well as with the previous point, you know, Umar and Ibn Umar and Arqam Nabi Arqam. It's not matching with any of them.
But Sheikh, what if I say that because it means 10 and a bit, so what if it means 10 and just 3 instead of 9, so it just means 13?
No, it's even worse. So I'm trying to help out that narration.
Does it make it worse?
Than 18.
Oh, because Abu Bakr would only be 40, it would be 33.
Oh. So no, I'm trying to help out the brothers, you know. So bid'ah means between 3 to 9.
Right.
Okay, so let's say I'm trying to help them.
It's worse,
So even if I'm trying to help, it's not helping, you know.
Right.
It's controversial.
Yeah, you know the Hazrat Umar one, I got mixed up there, but that's what I was about to say, right? That it actually makes Hazrat Aisha at least 12 or 13.
No, so it's not working, you know. Even that, and forget about that, but narration says within 3 years, first 3 years. Yeah. So now forget about Umar.
But let's say even if you looked at the Hazrat Umar hadith, that makes her at least 12 or 13 as well.
Because,
why is that?
Because if Ibn Umar is born when Rasulullah became a prophet, right? And it's saying that he was a child when Hazrat Umar became Muslim.
According to this, Hijrah, before Hijrah, so after the prophethood, 9th after the prophethood, then when Umar became Muslim. So according to that, after the prophethood, 3rd year after the prophethood, Ibn Umar was born.
No, but what I mean is, so for example, it's agreed upon that in Uhud he was 14. So it means that he was born when Rasulullah became a prophet.
Or
correct.
So,
and if he was a young boy when Hazrat Umar became a Muslim.
Now, do not support this point, you know. Try to support the brothers.
No, I'm saying it based on things I thought their point was actually right first. But for example, 5. So it means he's about 5 or 6. roughly when Hazrat Umar became a Muslim,
Yeah.
because he said I'm a young boy. So you're looking at when Rasulullah was so 45ish, Rasulullah was about 45, and then it's agreed upon that Hazrat Aisha became a Muslim beforehand.
Yeah, before Umar.
Before Hazrat
Before Umar, yeah.
And to be a Muslim, you need to be roughly about 4 or 5.
No. Over that, 4 years old kid, you will say, oh, he became.
But let's say a worst case scenario, you have to be 4 or 5.
No, 6 as a minimum.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 6. But let's just say 4 or 5, just to help out the other.
We're doing some bid'ah now.
Yeah. So then that would mean that she was born when it was prophethood as well.
Yeah.
Which would mean that she'd be at the minimum 12 of them.
Yes, so you have to ignore all of that and to say that when Abu Bakr, when Umar became Muslim, Ibn Umar was 6 years, just to help out that. So then we say, so what?
Even then it
It doesn't. No. So it makes the controversial narrations even more and more. Do you understand? So it's not matching. This is not matching with that. And also, why we cannot go with the literal meaning of what Sayyidah Aisha said. So I say, for example, now in our time, if you ask someone's age, straight away he will know. Because on daily basis, he will just look at the watch, Okay, so today I am, 40 years old and 60 hours and 3 minutes and 1 second. But in that time, it wasn't that common to think, oh, how old I am, But people would relate it to the very important events. Okay, so
which is common with our grandparents as well, isn't it? If you ask them,
exactly,
when they were
yeah.
born, they'd say, "Oh, it was 2 years
Yeah.
after the war in Pakistan, or 1 year before, or something like that."
Yeah, and also another narration also. Hisham bin Urwa, and Hisham bin Urwa. Who's Hisham bin Urwa?
The
Nephew of Sayyidah Aisha, Sayyidah Asma. So Hisham bin Urwa did confirm that Sayyidah Asma, when she passed away, she was 100 years old. Am I right? And on top of that, he said that Hisham bin Urwa said that when she died, she had all of her teeth on. Okay, and relatives, they know each other better than other people. Am I right? Okay, and then. Let's say that because Imam Zahabi actually in here, it is the point, if you remember before that, the difference between Sayyidah Asma being 10 or several after 10, so that where Imam Zahabi actually makes some, you can say, statements. So anyway, Imam Zahabi says, quotes from Ibn Abi Zinad that Sayyidah Asma was 10 years older than Sayyidah Aisha, and after that he says that, so according to this narration, the difference between them being 10, so it means that when Sayyidah Asma passed away, she was only 91 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, just to...
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, no, because Imam Zahabi now is going with the most popular opinion, okay? But after that he says, but Hisham bin Urwa did say that she passed away when she was 100 years old, said Asma.
And Hisham bin Urwa is the same person who narrates the hadith in Bukhari.
Yeah, correct, yeah, it is the same person, yeah. And Hisham bin Urwa is the nephew of Sayyidah Aisha, Sayyidah Asma. So anyway, it's each time when you go to look into a new narration about the age of Sayyidah, it's getting even worse and worse and worse. So from here, but it is very natural, it's very understandable, because the ages and the years in that time, it was not very common to think, For example, in the Roman Empire, or for example Byzantium, it was very important for them to know the dates.
Right.
Okay, but in Arabian Peninsula, it was not that very common to know what's the date and what's the time, etc. Okay, so that will explain why do we have so controversial narrations about the events. Okay, so it is very understandable, because the people who can counts their age by the events and incidents, so that's what happens actually. Because as we mentioned about Rasulullah, so there is no agreed upon opinion about Rasulullah. So what do you think about anyone else? So there will not be any accurate understandings. So anyway, Sayyidah Asma and Imam Zahabi. But anyway, let's go back to the main issue. So it is in Tariq al-Islam, in my electronic copy. It is volume 3, page number 354. It is Tariq al-Islam of Imam Zahabi. Anyway, in terms of, okay, so forget about everything. So she was, we will calculate both of the cases. So if she was 100 years when she passed away. So when exactly did she pass away? It is about few weeks or few months as a maximum, 2 months as a maximum, after the murder of her son, Abdullah bin Zubair. And if you remember, when Hajjaj came and destroyed Mecca and Medina, and when he killed him, okay. So then, question: when exactly Abdullah bin Zubair was killed? Yeah, 73 Hijrah. Yeah, 73 Hijrah. So now, let's calculate it now. Again, if you can just help us out. So, if she was 100 years old when she died, and it was 73rd of Hijrah. So then, before how long she was born before Rasulullah started the mission?
So 27 before Hijrah.
27 before Hijrah.
And then
13 will be taken off. 14 years before
prophethood.
Before the prophethood. Okay, and then difference between them 10 years. Okay, so then it will be.
So 4. So Hazrat Aisha should be born, if she's born 14 years before prophethood.
Yeah.
The earliest Hazrat Aisha can be born is 4 years before prophethood.
4 years.
Which would make her 16 when they're...
Sorry?
Which would make her Aisha 16 when she got married.
Okay, so 4 years, correct. 4 years, yeah. But let's go with the narration of Imam Zahabi. Bid'ah means something between 3 to 9. 10, several years means between 3 to 9, after 10. Because Imam Zahabi is still supporting that opinion. So just to bring it closer. So let's say 19 years. 19 years after Sayyidah Asma. So if Sayyidah Asma was born 14 years before the prophethood, okay, Sayyidah Aisha was born 19 years after her, means 5th of the prophethood.
Yeah.
Okay, so this narration may bring it closer, because 6 years, I'm sorry, 5 years after the prophethood, okay, and so you will just, it is 13 years in Mecca, so you will take off, so she will be 8 years. Okay, so it's not coming close, so it is still not exactly the accurate number. Bid'ata ashara means that, you know. Okay.
So 8 at the time of marriage.
Marriage
and
means 3 years after that.
So it's a big difference.
So
Actually,
it is still a difference, you know. So it's not coming.
It's not 6.
So even when Imam Zahabi is helping out that group, it's not coming close, you know. It is still, and also Imam Zahabi helped out, and I'm also helping, because bid'ah doesn't mean 19.
It might mean 19.
Between 3 to 9.
Could mean 13.
It
19,
could 13, yeah.
Doesn't
So it's not coming, you know. Okay. As well as I found narrations in which it says that when she married Rasulullah, she was only 4.
For Hazrat Aisha.
Yeah.
Because adding the bits to make it to 6, isn't it?
It's not that, but it says accurately she was 4. Not by calculation, but she makes statement, but I think it's weak narration. She says I was 4, and then 7 when she...
Is there such a weak narration?
Yeah, it is that, but it's not by calculation. It is not by calculation.
Do you know where this is found? Or?
I actually saw this narration a couple of days ago, but I didn't take it because it was. But anyway, inshallah, I will email it to you, inshallah, if it's very important. So that is strange actually. Also, there is another issue in which Abu Nu'aym also mentions that Sayyidah Asma was born 27 years before the migration. Abu Nu'aym al-Asbahani mentioned that. So 27 years before the migration. So then, what will be the age of Sayyidah Asma when before the prophethood, in the time of prophethood?
So she's born 27 years before the migration.
So it is 14.
14, yeah.
So it is again the same thing. So then age of Sayyidah Aisha will be 8 in the marriage, and then something about 11 when she moved in. So it is again, it's not matching. Yeah, so...
So you're getting many strange numbers.
It
You're
is,
going from
it is conflicting with each
18
other.
to 12
Yeah,
to
exactly.
20, right? Yeah, because even it came to 28 at one time.
Yeah, it is
isn't
coming. It is still there.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And also, and then brothers just responded to this statement saying all of that is about the difference between 10 years. So okay, forget about 10. Even 19 didn't work also. Am I right? As Imam Zahabi mentioned that Bid'at Ashar didn't work also. Okay, but let's forget. So then brothers say that it's about 19, I mean the difference between them being 10 is narrated from Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Zinad. And then they say that scholars actually, they disagreed about him. Some said that he is weak. Okay, so, and for example, Imam Ahmad, so it is in Tahdhib al-Tahdhib. Okay, so Imam Ahmad says about him, Muftarab al-Hadith, means in his narrations there is, once he says one thing and the second time he says something different, you know. That's the meaning of Muftarab al-Hadith. And Ibn Ma'in said about him, لَيْسَ مِمَّنْ يَحْتَجُ بِهِ أَصْحَابُ الْحَدِيثِ, means scholars of hadith, they do not use him as proof. Okay, as well as Ali ibn al-Madini says, ما حدث بالمدينة فهو صحيح. So whatever he did narrate in Medina, that is authentic. Okay, and then he says, وما حدث ببغداد أفسده البغداديون. So he says, but whatever he narrated in Baghdad, so that is actually non-authentic. So it's just going on that level. And anyway, after that, Abu Hatim says about him, يكتب حديثه ولا يحتج به. So his hadith will be will be written, but you cannot narrate it as backing up something, as a proof. As well as Imam Nasa'i said about him, about the same person, لا يحتج بحديثه, you cannot use his narration as a proof. As well as Abu Ahmad ibn Adi, he says, وبعض ما يرويه لا يتابع عليه, means some of whatever he narrated, you cannot actually use him as a proof. And after that, brothers mentioned that, and also because Imam Tirmidhi declared about the narration of the same person, Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Zinad, that it is authentic. Okay, so just to disprove that the difference between them was 10 years, they have to prove that Ibn Abi Zinad is weak. Okay, but then what about Tirmidhi saying that his hadith is authentic? So brothers say that after all of this proves that Ibn Abi Zinad is weak, we cannot take what Tirmidhi says. Okay, and I'm not the expert of hadith, but I teach Mustalah al-Hadith. We do have something in Mustalah al-Hadith which is al-Jarh al-Mubham la yuqbal. It's a very famous statement. They say the non-explained, non-clarified criticizing is not accepted. So for example, I will say, okay, Bukhari is weak. Okay, for example, Abdul Rahman ibn, for example, Al-A'raj, Abdul Rahman ibn Hurmuz is weak. So this is non-explained. Why is he weak? Okay, so I have to say, because he actually gets paid for the narration. Okay, because if I say that he's weak, so maybe I'm saying that he's weak according to my own principles. So maybe what I consider as weakness, other scholars may not consider. So that's why they said non-clarified criticizing of someone is not accepted.
Right.
Okay, so if we go back to what the scholars of hadith said about Ibn Abi Zinad, you very hardly understand that they are criticizing him badly. But for example, what he says, Imam Ahmad says, Muftarabul hadith. Okay, it's not it's not very deep criticism. For example, saying he's a liar. Okay, or another thing. For example, Ali ibn al-Madini saying, ما حدث بالمدينة فهو صحيح. Whatever he narrated in Medina is authentic, and whatever he narrated in Baghdad is non-authentic. Is he criticizing? What do you think?
Well, he's just making a qualification. He's not saying, yeah, it's all wrong. He's saying, yeah.
So you cannot use this statement saying that he's weak.
Hmm.
Okay? So that's another thing. What
What would the logic be behind that? That anything in narrated in Medina is not weak, and everything in narrated outside is.
So maybe during the journey, maybe he lost one of his books, maybe, and after that he tried to restore it from his memory. But in Medina, he had all of his libraries there, you know. It could be many reasons for that, you know. So it's not sarih in terms of criticizing or disproving his authenticity. Or for example, Ahmad ibn Adi saying, وَبَعْضُ مَا يَرْوِيهِ لَا يُتَبَعُ عَلَيْهِ. Some of his narrations, you cannot follow that, for example. It's not also saying that he's weak. Do you understand? And also, he says, Nasa'i says, لَا يُحْتَجُ بِحَدِيثِهِ. You cannot use his hadith as a proof. We say, non-clarified. Why? Why you cannot use it? And the principle in Mustalah hadith, if someone is criticizing the narrator and he doesn't explain why is he weak, we do not accept that.
Right, even if it's unnecessary.
No, so what? They have to explain, but because it could be that something that Nasai considers as weakness, other scholars do not consider.
Right.
So that's one thing. But what about if someone says that he's authentic, but that doesn't explain why is he authentic? We say we do accept it, because to prove that he's authentic, there are so many conditions, and it is not reasonable to mention why is he authentic, you know. Okay, so Imam Tirmidhi using him as a proof, as a hujjah, that is in itself is enough to consider. But anyway, forget about the narration of 10 years. Even if we go with what Imam Zahabi says, that it was the difference was bid'at ashar, so even that didn't work, you know. Okay, so it is a bit strange. But anyway, the most important thing that the narrations are not matching with each other. So that's the most important thing. Okay, so then we did mention these issues about Sayyidah Aisha and Sayyidah Fatima. And also, if you remember the last week also we have spoken about Sayyidah Aisha and Usama bin Zayd. Usama bin Zayd, if you remember. And Usama bin Zayd is the adopted grandson of Rasulullah ﷺ. He's very famous, yeah. And also his title is Hib al-Hib ibn al-Hib, beloved one, son of beloved. This is very famous. And then Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu was something between 18 to 19 years old when he passed away. Okay, it is non-disagreed upon issue. Okay, so it is in my version, in my Bidaya wa Nihaya copy, it is the electronical copy, it is volume number 8, page number 67, saying that when Rasulullah ﷺ passed away, Usama bin Zayd was 19 years old. Okay, but anyway, and then we have a narration in which Sayyidah Aisha says, أمرني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن أغسل وجه أسامة وهو صبي. قالت وما ولدت ولا أعرف كيف يغسل الصبيان. So then she says, Rasulullah ordered me to wash the face of Usama, okay, وهو صبي, when he was kid. Okay, that is one thing. So according to the what brother says 6-9, so Sayyidah Aisha when Rasulullah passed away, she was 18.
Yeah.
Okay, means Rasulullah Islam is ordering Sayyidah Aisha to wash the face of someone who was on her age or 1 year older, to wash his face. Okay, and then she says in that time he was kid. And after that she carries on, وَمَا وَلَدْتُ, I didn't give birth yet. وَلَا أَعْرِفُ كيف, so I don't know how kids are washed. Doesn't make sense. For me it does not make sense, you know. So in that time she will be something about 13 years old, and he will be 13 or 14 years old.
So if she's saying she hasn't given birth,
so she doesn't know how to means
wash a baby.
Yeah, means there have to be the difference of mother and son, you know. As well as she is saying he was yet kid in that time.
Right.
She was kid also according to the 6-9 narration, you know. Okay, so it doesn't make sense actually. Yeah.
Is Usama bin Zayd the son of Zayd
Zayd
bin
ibn
Haritha?
Haritha, same one, yeah.
So he was a Sahaba who was black, and the footprint
Yeah.
So he's one of
the
the
same
black
one.
Sahaba.
Yeah, correct,
Okay.
yeah. Because his mother was black.
Right.
Yeah. So it is actually, it is not very literal, but it makes sense. So a girl at the age of 13 was ordered to wash the face of the boy aged 14, 1 year older than her, or on the same age. And then after that she says, in that time he was kid. She was kid also, you know, it doesn't make sense. As well as she says, I didn't have a baby, I didn't give birth of a baby, so I don't know how kids are washed.
You wouldn't say that about a teenager, really.
Exactly, yeah. And exactly, unless if there would be difference, big difference, sufficient difference. But if they are in the same time, she cannot say, I didn't give birth yet, but she would say, I didn't have a brother. Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it's and also there is a narration in Musnad Ahmad, as far as I remember. I do have the thing. So once Sayyidah Aisha says, أراد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يمسح مخاط أسامة فقلت دعني حتى أكون أنا التي أفعل فقال يا عائشة أحبيه فإني أحبه. So then Sayyidah Aisha says, once Rasulullah ﷺ just wanted to wash away, do you know the maybe like Usama bin Zaid maybe sneezed, so Rasulullah wanted to just wash it away, wash it off. So Sayyidah Aisha says, Ya Rasulullah, let me do it. Okay, so then it will not be something same aged people, you know. And after that Rasulullah said, Ya Aisha, oh Aisha, love him because I do love him. Okay, so it's it again shows that there is some strange controversiality actually. Yeah.
Are you saying like he had a runny nose?
Yeah, yeah.
And has Rasulullah told
wanted to wash
Hazrat
it away.
That would be very strange for a teenager anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Or
yeah.
even 12-year-old or...
Yeah, yeah. Especially if they're same age or a boy is 1 year older.
Because mostly like a kid would just clean his own nose unless it's quite young, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's no such thing in... Funny question, but in that culture that people don't... It's very strange.
For example, Usama bin Zayd himself, okay, so he was leader by the age of 17, 18, who was leading whole army against the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
So do you think that at the age of 20 he will need someone to wash off his nose? Okay, so unless if he was a baby, kid, okay, means there should be some big difference between Sayyidah Aisha and Usama. It's not that Usama was 1 year older than Aisha and then Rasulullah said Aisha will go to wash away his face, you know. Yeah, so it's a bit strange actually. And also that narration which is in Tabari and Ibn Kathir about Sayyidah Aisha, even before Rasulullah made proposal, she was engaged, okay. She was already engaged to Mut'im bin Adi, his son Jubair Mut'im, and all of them, Mut'im bin Adi, he was kafir and he died as a kafir, okay, and the most beloved, you can say, a companion of Rasulullah marrying off his daughter to a non-believer. It's a bit strange actually, yeah.
But the answer I've heard for this is they said it's very common for people to be married even before birth. So like if I say I'm going to marry my daughter to your son,
yeah.
If I have a daughter, in case.
Yeah.
So they said it's that kind of...
No, my point is not that, but still I want to answer to it, because in here it says that if I will marry off my son to your daughter, who is still there. Okay, forget about that point, but the most important issue is the most beloved companion of Rasulullah marrying off his daughter to non-Muslim. So what I'm trying to emphasize, this could happen only before Abu Bakr followed Rasulullah on belief.
So I mean, to me, also when I heard this, it was a very to me it was very shocking that Hazrat Abu Bakr, he's so strong, and we don't believe he was ever a non-Muslim, as
correct, yes.
As you said. For him to do that to an idolater, not even a Jew or a Christian, very strange. But then they mentioned that even, was it Hazrat Zainab,
Yeah.
One of the daughters of Rasulullah was married to a non-Muslim. And so
correct,
they said, why did Rasulullah marry his daughter to idolater before coming of Islam?
No, it is two different things. I do not mean that. I mean that, so when message came, okay, just to help up the brothers, this engagement should happen after Abu Bakr becoming Muslim. For us to say that Sayyidah Aisha was 6 when she married Rasulullah alayhi salam. But what I'm trying to say, even after the revelation, Abu Bakr is still insisting to marry off his daughter to the idol worshipper. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Especially we know how Abu Bakr is jealous for the Prophet and his message.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. So that is my point.
So if Aisha was so
you
young,
cannot touch it. Yes.
Yeah. So you're not saying whether it happened.
So I say it could happen only before Abu Bakr followed Rasulullah alayhi salam.
So before prophethood, it makes sense to marry your daughter.
Yeah.
But
or afterward, he was so closely engaged with the Prophet, and he was so jealous for the message. So when he was beaten up, do you remember? And he felt unconscious. When he woke up, what he said first thing? Where is Abu Qasim? Do you remember?
Yeah.
So he was so closely engaged with the Prophet, and even after that, him marrying off his daughter to idol worshipper. And according to the brothers who say that it is 6-9, this event of marrying off to non-Muslim took place after him being beaten up by the same people. Because being beaten up, it happened at the end of the year 3, where Sayyidah Aisha was not born yet,
right.
you know. So after him being beaten up, Sayyidah Aisha was born, and then he did marry off his daughter to the same people, okay, who insulted the Prophet, who did beat him up. So it does make sense, you know.
So the only way to make it
to happen only before the prophethood.
Right. But I know what they will say. They will just say this was arranged before she was born. That's because I've heard them say that. I'm not saying I believe it, but they will say. So there is even such an engagement, like me and.
It could happen, yes. Yeah, so it could happen.
We will say our children will marry each other no matter what.
So what we say is the literal meaning of what hadith states. But what they are saying, it is their own extra conclusion. For that, we need extra proof. Do you understand? So it's the same thing.
It's not. It's a deduction.
Because that is possibility. But what we say is literal meaning.
It's just engagement. It doesn't say anything about before.
Correct.
Fascinating. Right.
Okay, so is there also?
Just incidentally, Sheikh, is that a thing in Islam that people can arrange marriage even before, like at the moment? Is there such a thing in fiqh? Like I can say my son will marry your daughter, and even though I don't have a son and maybe you don't have an...
It is only promise.
It's just a promise, isn't it? Right, okay. So it's not like they're born and then...
No, after the birth, that will be the official engagement. I see. But before that, just promise.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why what they're saying, it could be metaphorically.
Right.
So now they became Asharis actually.
Okay, so it'll be like Tawil of this.
Tawil,
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is this. And also for me, even if she was 6 or 9, for me it doesn't make sense. Because Rasulullah is the best creature, and Rasulullah, whatever he does, for me that's the principle. Not the principle what I know and why Prophet is not following he's not that, but whatever Prophet does, that's the principle for me. So I'm not ashamed. Even if what they say is right, so what? Rasulullah is the best person and he knows what is he doing. So I don't have a problem with that. Okay, but what I try to say in here that because your question, very first question, is it mutawatir or is there a difference of opinion? So that was the question. So answer came, it's first of all there is no any tawatur, 100%. But is it agreed upon? So these other narrations means there is no agreed upon thing. But there is popular, most popular. Okay? And also in the very beginning of the lecture I said that some opinion being the most popular doesn't necessarily mean that it is the most reliable. And I gave an examples for that. And also, for example, in terms of, for example, the differences in the age, so just I brought some of the... for example, it's in terms of Umar ibn Khattab and Sayyidah Kulthum, Sayyidah Zainab, daughter of Ali, is very famous, as well as the difference between Sayyidah Maryam when she was engaged, she was 12 years old, and when Joseph, okay, to whom she was engaged, he was 89 years old. Amara, so the difference is going to be 77 years between Sayyidina Maryam and Joseph, according to the Gospels, okay? And I do have the reference for that. So it is 77 years old.
I think that's
I mean,
in the
77
early,
differences, sorry?
it's in one of the Christian histories. It's mentioned what you said.
Encyclopedia.
Is it Catholic Encyclopedia?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so that's the main things about the Sayyidah Aisha, and also the brothers just saying that in terms of the linguistic thing. Okay, so we did catch on them their linguistic thing in terms of fil jahiliya. So they did catch some issue on our linguistic thing. So anyway, so in terms of تزوجني وأنا بنت ست وبنى بي وأنا بنت تسعين. So بنى بي, so they are saying that بنى بي means to have a sex. Okay, so if you take the meaning of what she's trying to say, that Rasulullah married me when I was 6 and he had sex with me when I was 9.
Yeah.
It is, first of all, it does make sense for me, no? But anyway, so banabi, does it mean having sex? Okay, so I said in the last week that banabi means they are starting the journey of the like married journey, you know, means they are living together. So that is, I still insist on that point. But does it mean that they had sex? It doesn't mean, as well as it does not mean that they didn't have. Okay, so and also the proof of that is Mukhtar al-Sahah of Razi. It's an authentic dictionary book. It's very famous. So then Bana, so he says Bana ala ahlihi yabni. Okay, means zaffaha, means made zafaf. Okay, so what's the meaning of zafaf? Zafaf, from the same Mukhtar al-Sahah, means زف العروس إلى زوجها أو زفت العروس إلى زوجها, means the lady has been moved or brought to the house of the husband. Zafaf, what's the zafaf? It's very famous. Just go and Arabian say, what do you mean by zafaf? Do you mean sex or what do you mean? Okay, so the meaning of bana ala ahlihi means zaffaha. Okay, so that's the meaning. Okay, and also in terms of inshallah, I'm going to mention some other quotations about that, and also the linguistic thing. According to some of the scholars of the Arabic language, Jawhari is a very famous scholar. So he says it's non-fusha to say bana biha. You have to say bana alayha because it's coming from okay. But then the scholars from the other side, they replied to this point saying, but Sayyidah Aisha, she is the most strongest Arabian speaker. She said bana biha, so it means that it is authentic to say bana biha. Okay, but then we say we are talking about this narration being reliable or non-reliable, so you cannot quote it as a proof. Okay, so bana alayha, because it's coming from like setting the you know the house or the tent of the marriage. Okay, so you cannot say bana biha but bana alayha.
Right.
Did you understand? So yeah.
But does bana bina even mean sex?
Sorry?
Is there agreement that even the other wording, bana biha?
Literal meaning is building.
Right, so even
Okay,
that
so
doesn't mean sex.
Not building. So it would mean sex non-literally, but ashari way meaning.
Oh.
By ta'wil, you know?
So
because literal direct meaning is to build house or to build something.
So both of them don't mean sex. So what's the why are they arguing? So
It-
bana ilayha doesn't
yeah.
mean sex, and
Yeah,
banu the other both don't mean sex.
No, it's very strange because brothers are insisting that if you do not accept what we are saying, then you are enemy of Islam. Means I have to believe. So one of the questions in Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah will ask me, did your Prophet have a sex with Aisha when she was 9? So that was they're trying to emphasize, which is very
It's very strange.
silly. It's
yeah.
very, so bana biha doesn't mean to have sex, but to live together. But not only that, but just I want to quote from the same book which I mentioned before. It is Kitab al-Bad wa Tarikh of Balkhi. Do you remember? that scholar who passed away, Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, who passed away 322nd of Hijrah. So he's speaking about the same event. Okay, so he comes back and to back up the position or to quote the statement about 6 and 9. What does he say? So he says, Aisha تزوجها بمكة قبل الهجرة بسنة. So Balkhi says, Sayyidah Aisha, Rasulullah married her in Mecca 1 year before the Hijrah. وهي ابنة 7 سنين, and she was 7 years old. وبنى بها بالمدينة, and then he made bina with Sayyidah Aisha in Medina, and then he says ودخل بها بعد البناء بسنة. So then he made دخول to Sayyidah Aisha after bina, after 1 year. Does that make sense? Did you follow what I said?
So
what he says, Balkhi, Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, who passed away 322nd. So he says, Rasulullah married her 1 year before the migration, and she was 7. One thing. وَبَنَى بِهَا بِالْمَدِينَةِ, and then Rasulullah made bina with her in Medina. So according to me, bina means they moved to live together in Medina, but according to him, he had, whatever he had. And then he says, وَدَخَلَ بِهَا بَعْدَ الْبِنَاءِ بَسَنَةٍ, and then Rasulullah made dukhul after bina, after 1 year after bina. So this could match with what I said, okay, but with what they said. So dukhul happened after 1 year after bina. And it is in the Sirah book of Kitab al-Bad wa Tarikh of Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, who passed away at 322nd. It's very close to the time of Imam Ahmad and so all of them scholars.
So, Sheikh, the natural question comes for us ordinary people is, who does say that bina means sex? So where does this come from?
Okay, so and just I want to go to quote what brothers sent. So from Umdatul Qari they say, قوله فبنى بها أي دخل بها. Bina in here means دخل. Okay. قال ابن الأثير الابتناء والبناء الدخول بالزوجة. Bina and ibtina means to go with the wife. Okay. And then والأصل فيه, and the root of this word came from كان أن الرجل كان إذا تزوج بامرأة بنى عليها قبة ليدخل بها. The root of this word is because when someone would marry some lady, so they would build some tent, so for them to stay together. Okay, and then he said the same thing. قال الجوهري لا يقال بنى بأهله. So Jawhari says to say بنى بأهله is incorrect. The narration said it. So you have to say بنى عليها. So they are taking it from here. Inshallah we'll just carry on. So then Al-Misbah al-Munir, so he says بنى على أهله دخل بها. Okay, بنى means دخل. Okay, and then he mentioned the same root of the word, and then he says so, and after so the literal meaning is building the tent. Okay, but afterward it has been used كُنْيَ بِهِ عَنِ الْجِمَاعِ. So after that it was used for the sexual intercourse. And then he says from Tilbatul Talaba, it's one of the fiqh mustalah books of Hanafis. So he says بنى بها أي حملها إلى بيته ودخل بها. So then bana means, according to Imam Nasafi, حملها إلى بيته, so husband took his new married wife to his house, ودخل بها, and then he made dukhul. Dukhul means for them to stay in one room with no any other presence. So then he says the same thing about bana being not biha but alayha. Anyway, and then from Tajul Uruz he says أعرس بأهله. أعرس, do you know the أعرس is urs. The meaning of urs is wedding. Okay, so that means bana alayha, means the bina alayha. So this doesn't match with the previous ones. Yeah. So then he says what وفي التهذيب بنا بها وكذا عرس بها. So anyway, so for according to Tajul Uruz is bana is synonym to arras, ta'ris. You know, urs is mainly the wedding. Okay, as well as zafaf, mukhtar as-sihah. Okay, so so these are the main quotations. The main quotations in here. Somewhere, if you mind. Okay, so these are the main quotations in which actually, according to all of these scholars, bina means dukhul. Okay, and from Razi I quoted that bina means zafaf. Zafaf is wedding, when husband will wed on his wife and she will be brought. Okay, as well as in Taj al-Uruz, bina means arasa, and urs is also wedding. Okay, and the rest of the sources, Misbah al-Munir and Tilbat al-Talaba, bina means dukhul. And also, if you can see, so there is some disagreement. So does it mean the bina means zafaf and urs, or does it mean actual dukhul? Okay, so that is one thing. And the second thing is, for the dukhul, I did mention even the last week, for the dukhul, meaning sex is also not literal meaning. Dukhul is to enter. Okay, and if you remember, I did mention from Hanafi position, for example, let's suppose that I married some lady and dukhul took place. And after half an hour after dukhul, I will come out saying, I did divorce my wife, okay? And then I will say to Qadi, actually I didn't have a sexual intercourse, okay? So then Qadi says that she doesn't have to keep any idda. And idda will be after sex 100%. So dukhul in itself is not literally means that to have sexual intercourse, okay? So dukhul, for example, in Hanafi madhab and Hanbali means to kiss and to hug, okay? As well as dukhul means the literal meaning for them to stay in one room, okay? But what happens there? They're free to do whatever they want to. And then the most important thing, what Balkhi says, so even let's say that dukhul means to have a sex, Balkhi did mention that dukhul actually happened after 1 year after bina. So this is authentic, means it never means dukhul and bina is not synonyms.
Right.
Because no, I did quote.
With a gap of 1 year between.
Yeah, no, because that's the statement means تزوجها بمكة قبل الهجرة بسنة. Rasulullah Islam married Sayyidah Aisha 1 year before migration. وهي ابنة 7 سنين, and Sayyidah Aisha was 7 years old. وبنى بها بالمدينة, and then Rasulullah Islam made bina with Sayyidah Aisha in Medina, and after that he says ودخل بها بعد البناء بسنة, and Rasulullah Islam made dukhul after bina after 1 year. So it does make sense. Okay, so it is a bit strange.
So it's
not that big issue, you know. So everyone says that bina is to have sex. So I say even dukhul doesn't mean sex. Dukhul means for them to confirm the marriage. Confirmation is but literally is by sex. Okay, by having sex, but dukhul will actually, because normally when you will make dukhul, when you're with her on your own, okay, so then from now you have to pay the mahar, because normally people do not disclose what happened in the dukhul. Does make sense? So that's why dukhul was kinaya, and metaphorically would mean the sex, but not literally. Okay, but in here, Balkhi actually did mention that even that dukhul did happen after 1 year, after the bina. Okay, so that's the main things. And also, just maybe the last thing about the issue, because mashallah brothers, they're saying that anyone who doesn't accept that say that Aisha was 6 years old, so he is actually scratching the authenticity of Imam Bukhari, etc. So just some quotations from Sheikh Nasr al-Albani. So do you remember the hadith of Imam Bukhari in which Rasulullah, hadith Qudsi, in which it says Man aada li waliya? It's a very famous hadith. Anyone who hurts one of my awliya, I will declare a war against him. Do you remember that hadith? Okay, so that is narration of Bukhari. Albani said weak. Okay, so then why? So which one is more important, you know, this or age of Sayyidah Aisha? So then why Albani is not the enemy of religion? Because he's scratching on the authenticity of the Bukhari. That's the first hadith. And the second hadith is Rasulullah said there are 3 people I will be their you can say khasm. Khasm means to in the court 2 people when one claim and one defend. What do you call them? 2 people.
Defendant and...
Yeah, no, but to each other.
Oh. So one is claiming and one is defending in court.
So Rasulullah says, there are three categories of people, I will be against them in Yawm al-Qiyamah to chase up them, you know.
Right.
Okay, so then Rasulullah mentioned, so one of them is anyone who have been given something by my name and after that he cheated. And the second person is the one who buys and sells the free man. And the third one is the person who actually brings some labor and doesn't pay his payment. So Rasulullah will chase him up. So Nasr al-Albani said it is weak again. But hadith is in Bukhari. Third hadith is about Rasulullah delaying the tawaf ziyarah, tawaf of Hajj toward the end of the night. Hadith is in Bukhari and Albani said is weak. And also Rasulullah having horse which name was Al-Luhayf. Okay, so hadith is in Bukhari and Albani is saying weak. Okay, so but I don't believe that these brothers say that Albani is the enemy of Islam because he's scratching on the authenticity of the second more reliable hadith. That's one thing. And on top of that, even after the authenticity of the hadith being in Bukhari, it doesn't mean that you have to implement it. For example, do you know hadith is from Abdullah ibn Zubair. Rasulullah made Raful Yadain, and then after that Rasulullah did catch his hand. Hadith is in Bukhari. Imam Malik said catching the hand is not sunnah. Okay, so even hadith being in Bukhari, it doesn't mean that that's it. It is the end of the dunya, you know. Or another hadith which is hadith is in Bukhari. Rasulullah says, no any of you should start fasting one day before Ramadan or 2 days before Ramadan. Imam Ahmad came back, so hadith is in Bukhari. Imam Ahmad said it is compulsory to fast 1 day before in Yawm al-Shak. But hadith is in Bukhari. Or Imam Abu Hanifa saying, do you know the hadith of Musarrat? It's a very famous hadith. So some Sahabi has been cheated. What was the case? So someone sold a cow after keeping the cow for 3-4 days without milking. So while that person was selling the cow to the Sahabi, so it had, you know, cow had like a lot of milk because it hasn't been milked, okay, for 3-4 days. And seller did it to cheat, to get a better price, saying, look how much milk does it do. Okay, so Sahabi bought it and then milked that first day, mashallah, it was good. Second day it was just a little bit. So he understood that he has been cheated. So then this incident went to Rasulullah. So Rasulullah ordered that person who bought the cow to return back the cow and to give something about 3-4 kgs of a date. So Abu Hanifa said, you have to return back the cow and you have to refund whatever the cost of the milk, but not 3-4 kgs of the date. Okay, as well as another hadith which I mentioned in Bukhari, that Sahabi has been shot, you know, and he was bleeding. No any of the 4 scholars can accept this hadith because it means that Rasulullah is allowing us to pray even if there is blood in the body or in the cloth. And Allah says, أَوْ دَمًا مَسْفُوحًا, the shed blood is filth. Did you understand? But hadith is in Bukhari. Doesn't make sense. So if scratching the authenticity of Bukhari is being enemy of Islam, so then there is Albani. But if not accepting the content of the hadith of Bukhari means being enemy of Islam, so then that is Malik, that is Ahmad, and that is all of 4, and that is Abu Hanifa. Call them whatever you do call them, you know. So it is not that easy case, you know. It is not that easy case just because of some hadith being in Bukhari and you are not accepting, so you become enemy of Islam. So it is just a bit childish statement actually. So that is all maybe for. And I'm not willing to come back to this matter no more because now it will become like internet forum, and I do not get engaged into the forum because the people who get engaged into the forums is just kids, you know, whose father brought a gift in their birthday, 6 years of birthday, which is some like a gift called laptop. There is internet connection, so then they go to debate. I'm not ready to debate with that type of people. No, I say leave this matter for your uncles, please. Yeah, that's it.